Welcome, friends, to another edition of Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga with Dr. Subramaniam Swamy. As you all know, we every day meet at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time for this interesting conversation with Dr. Subramaniam Swamy. We are on now numerous platforms. As you know, we are on the Virat Hindustan Sangam YouTube. We are now also on Facebook Live and also on Twitter Periscope simultaneously. So our social media interaction for Dr. Swamy and this program, Words of Wisdom and Gyan Ganga, is expanding. And we thank our viewers for their support and encouragement. I also have to thank our moderators, Dr. Arvind Chaturvedi and Ramesh Swamy, and technical support. I have to thank Ashish Shetty and our Pune friend Tejas Navalgul, who has been behind the scene, Ashish and Tejas, helping us with our team to set up this program. So I request Arvind Chaturvedi to field the first question.
Namaskar, Dr. Swamy.
Namaskar.
You are a crusader against corruption.
Yeah.
Wherever there is a corruption, you go after it. You have not spared anybody, not even Gandhi family. National Herald is such a case where Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, and the top leaders of the Congress are on bail. Even Prime Minister calls it bail gadi, courtesy you.
Yes.
Will you please tell our viewers the details about the National Herald case and the current status?
Yes. First of all, my objective is to convert the bail gadi into a jail gadi. The scandal is enormous. 1937, Jawaharlal Nehru and so many other leaders, Ravi Ahmad Kidwai and Karju and socialist leaders, they all came together and they decided that they needed a newspaper which gave our freedom struggle news. So they put in money. Jawaharlal Nehru put the least money to buy shares. And they created a private limited company called Associated Journals Private Limited. And that was in 1937. And because they gave freedom news about the freedom struggle, people bought it and it flourished. And in 1947, when we became independent, Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister. He was still then the chairman of the Associated Journals Limited and the National Herald. And since he was Prime Minister, he gave it to somebody else who was from the Congress and the part of the movement, Chalapati something, I think you forget his full name.
Chalapati Rao.
Chalapati Rao, something like that, yeah. And so then, as a government, he decided to curry favor with the newspaper world. He gave them concessional land, concessional finance, and so on. And particularly liberal with National Herald, and so on, Bahadur Shah, Zafar Magh, in addition to Indian Express and Times of India, Patriot, and so many other papers. He gave a prime land near the Indraprastha estate, and then they built a huge building because they got cheap loans. And then they asked for more land. They got in Lucknow, in Patna, in Indore, in Bhopal, in Bandra, in a very prime location. So they were supposed to build many branches of the National Herald. They did not, but they used the land for commercial purposes, which was illegal. But anyway, that's another story. By 2008, nobody was buying the newspaper because who wanted Congress Party propaganda? So they were, very small circulation. And but suddenly they began taking loans from the Congress Party, saying they were in financial difficulty. They did not take loans from anybody else, but they took it from the Congress Party. And I think that was the beginning of hatching of the conspiracy. And the conspiracy was that ultimately it should become a private property of the Nehru family. In 2008, the chairman of the board, Motilal Vora, announced that we are unable to pay the accumulated zero interest, zero, there was no mortgage. I mean, they didn't mortgage anything for it. It was a loan which amounted to about 90 crores and a little more. So they said we can't, we are not in a position to pay it, they did back, and therefore we are closing the whole newspaper. But not only National Herald, but Qawmi Awaz and Navjivan, the Hindi and the Urdu edition. Having closed it, suddenly a new organization was created in the year 2010 called Young Indian. And this Young Indian had in the beginning only two directors. One was Suman Dubey, a close family friend of Sonia Gandhi, and Sam Pitroda, he's a hatchet man for Rahul Gandhi. And these two, in their two names, they created a company called Young Indian. And the total, authorized capital was only 5 lakh rupees. And so the company was set up, and then it was decided that Suman Dubey would approach the Congress Party. And then the Congress Party and tell them that, you see, the Associated Journals Limited, the publisher of National Herald, closed down, and they say they can't discharge your debt, and so your debt is a dud now, and it's just a piece of paper. So you sell it to us, that piece of paper, for 50 lakh rupees. So you'll get what was worthless, you will get 50 lakhs for it. And the Congress Party was then, the president was Sonia Gandhi, and the vice president was Rahul Gandhi. Then the treasurer was Motilal Vora, who was also chairman of the board of the Associated Journals. And then and also Oscar Fernandez, who later became a director of Young Indian. He was also the general secretary. And Dubey and Sam Pitroda were known as advisor to the president. So, I mean, they were all part of the Congress Party. And they were also later on, when the transactions began to be effected and finalized, they were also directors of Young Indian. So the Suman Dubey made a proposal to Motilal Vora, who was the treasurer, that we give you 50 lakhs. Now they had Young Indian didn't have 50 lakhs because there is only 5 lakh authorized property, authorized capital. And so they said, we'll give you 50 lakhs and you give us the title, that is, it's called a deed of assignment. And that 90 crores plus we will become the owners of it. And it's between us and the Associated Journals whether we recover it or don't recover it. Now, Congress Party had given loans according to their own thing. That was, after all, money of the party workers who collected it. At least this is what they have claimed in their accounts, that the money is, being collected by party workers. So, not to have recovered the 90 lakhs, because by then, Associated Journals had at least 2,000 crores worth of property. That one in the Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg itself was 500 crores. See, so they could have used the company law to have a winding up a petition filed, and then auction that part of Associated Journals, which would give them 90 crores, which was easy. But they didn't do that. They calmly said that their negative net worth, without any calculation, the Congress Party, and said we're giving it to the young Indian for a price of 50 lakhs. So that 50 lakhs, with that 50 lakhs, by then Motilal Vora became the director of Young Indian. He went to the chairman of Associated Journals, who was also Motilal Vora. So Motilal Vora spoke to Motilal Vora to say, look, you have to pay back our 90 crores, we'll give you a easy way out. You issue 9 crores shares, new shares of 10 rupees each. Now, 10 rupees was the price in 1937. So they should have, the law requires that they should have gone and reevaluated the worth of their shares. But they said 10 rupees and ordinary shares 10 rupees, and the entire amount was sold by cheating, because when they called the general body, there were 1,161 members, shareholders of Associated Journals from time immemorial, and their children and all had the share certificates. But only 7 people turned up for the general body meeting. And in the general body meeting, as required, they put out the agenda in which they declared that no member, no director of the board has any interest in this transaction, which was a lie, because Motilal Vora directed. So did Oscar Fernandez, who was a member of was a director of Associated Journals, and so was Tuman Dubey, and so was Sam Putroda. They were all they were directors of that. So that was a lie. And then they said there will be no change in the management after this transaction. Now, 90 plus crores means so many lakhs of shares. That meant that 99.9% of the total authorized capital of Associated Journals became the part. The owners became Young Indian. And Young Indian, 80% of the shares was owned by, it was only 5 lakhs, but still 80% of that was owned by Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi at 40% shares each. They began with 38%, but they became 40% later. So what we are seeing is, by just investing 50 lakhs, they are able to get a company with immovable assets of at least 2,000 crores. Now I think it's 5,000 crores, with properties all over India. And since the Young Indian was controlled, 80%, it became their company. Anything over, that anything over 76% means you own the company. And the company became, and this property became in effect, the private property of Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. So what does it mean? And one more thing, where did they get this 50 lakhs? They got it from a Calcutta company called Toltecs, which in its account says that we gave a donation of 1 crore to Young Indian. But Young Indian accounts say they got a 0 interest, 0 mortgage, no time limit loan from Toltecs of 1 crore. So there was, again, lying, cheating there involved. So in sum, by criminal breach of trust, by criminal misappropriation, by cheating, and by conspiracy, Mr. Miss Sonia Gandhi, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Motilal Vora, Oscar Fernandez, Suman Dubey, and Sam Pitroda. They all have become accused, and summons was issued not during BJP time. It was issued, heard and issued when they were in power. And then the trial has to begin. So my cross-examination is going on just now. The next date was fixed for May 15th. And my whole case is based on documents. Most of the time in criminal trials, the witnesses are very crucial. And so you break the witness down. He says, I saw him shoot with a gun. And so the cross-examination, they'll ask what clothes was he wearing. You will say, well, I was wearing a yellow shirt with a brown pant. Well, what time was it? 6 p.m. It was winter and 6 p.m. How could you see with your eyes when it was so dark? This way you break down the... here, there's no way. These are all government documents. And I must say, our government, after the initial blockage and the resistance of Jaitley, with the help of the Prime Minister, who removed all these blocks, because that was the proper thing. They shouldn't interfere in a trial. What happened is that the income tax has led a special investigation, enforcement directorate, and the housing, because all this property was given for printing newspapers. Gopi Krishnan sent Rahul Gandhi a email, which we presented a report in which Rahul Gandhi says we have no intention of publishing newspapers. And today they are publishing something called National Herald, but it is not being printed in Herald House. It's being printed in Noida somewhere. So that's no excuse. And neither do the terms of the Memorandum of Association and the Articles of Association show that Young Indian has any intention of publishing a newspaper. So this is my gigantic fault. Only one thing I'd say, that one of the sections I've introduced is section 409, which says that directors of companies are agents of the company. And therefore, if there is a criminal misappropriation of property or cheating, then the sentence can be as high as life imprisonment. So I've introduced that in the case. And I hope definitely, even if I go slow, because I want to be absolutely sure, I have to thank this lockout, to thank Modi for the lockout, because I've done thorough, collating of documents, everything during this period. I'm very sure, very confident, as they are confident before also, that they will be convicted and they will go to jail.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for giving us a complete picture of the National Herald case. And as the court case proceeds, we will take update from you at a future date. Now over to Jagdish for another question.
Dr. Swamy, my next question to you is, आपने गए कई सालों से राजनीति में छाए हुए हैं. Last 50 years you have been active in politics in India, and before that also, you being in Delhi, you have interacted with a lot of people. One interesting personality during this period was, many of the younger generation perhaps may not know, but interesting personality has been Mrs. Indira Gandhi. So could you tell us some encounters or experiences or your remembrance of her and how you have met her and all that over a period of time? Please let us, for the benefit of the viewers, tell us about your impressions of Indira Gandhi.
Sure. Well, I first met Indira Gandhi in 1965 at her invitation. I was that time what is now renamed as Associate Professor of Economics at Harvard. And I was already quite famous at Harvard, because In those days, the Asians coming into faculty positions were very rare. And especially in economics department, they didn't have till I came. And so the Indian embassy told Miss Indira Gandhi when she came to give a lecture at a neighboring university called Brandeis University about me. And so she asked me to come and have tea with her. So I went, and this is 1965 winter. I went to Brandeis University, went to her room, and she gave me tea because she was having whiskey, but that's no problem. So she began talking and saying that she was very happy and very proud and so on. Then I asked her how things in India. She went into a long diatribe of Lal Bahadur Shastri, and she generally denounced Indians. She said they are all ungrateful people. When my father was alive, they were all hanging around like dogs, and now they won't even give me the time of the day, and so on. And it went on like that kind of chit chat. And then she told me, I really want to know whether you could do me a favor. I said, what? He said, well, you came here to this country, you studied, on the faculty. And so can you tell me how I can persuade my son from not going after these wild Western women? This is the exact phrase. I was taken aback. Only later on I knew, okay, I have to realize that it was Rahul Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi going after Sonia Gandhi, I suppose. So she said, can you go to London and persuade him to not do these things and explain to him? So I said, Madam, I can't do this. These are personal matters. Who wants to marry whom or who wants to chase whom? And it's between two people. So she was not very happy with my answer, because I think Nehru family people are not used to taking no's for answer. So that was my first meeting. The second meeting was, she was in 1968. She was very keen to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And all our intellectuals were fired up by the Americans to say that we must sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which means we'll be banned from using atom bomb. China had already produced the atom bomb, so I became a great exponent of producing the atom bomb. They talked about the huge economic burden which India will not be able to bear. I was able to prove in a publication in a magazine called, in a journal called Economic and Political Weekly, by using matrix analysis to show that it will actually improve employment in our country and economic growth in our country. It was by then this paper also had become very famous, and so I don't know. I thought I should give her a call, so I gave a call, and they said, "How long are you here?" Her special assistant said, "How long you are in India?" I said, "I'll be leaving by this flight to back to Boston, Air India to New York, and then to Boston." So they said, "Oh, Mrs. Gandhi is also going perhaps to Germany." And those days we had a hopping flight, so the Air India flight would stop in Germany, and you could meet her on the flight. So her special secretary in charge of her, of our Prime Minister's office, I forget his name, he was a very cultured Bengali gentleman. He was on the surprisingly in the economy and with me. And so when the flight was perhaps 1 hour from landing at Rome, where it was to make the first stop, he called me in, and she had an empty seat next to her, and so I sat next to her in the first class, and then I spoke to her. So then I told her. She said, "No, why do we want the bomb? What can it do?" We had a long argument. Then I said to her, "Don't commit the mistake of your father. who also thought that he didn't need to arm India against the Chinese. And she flared up no end with that. That was my second meeting. My third meeting took place after I had become member of parliament, after she had sacked me. Of course, she had taken up my book on Swadeshi plan and blasted it in parliament. I lost my job because of her. And then I became member of parliament, Jansang, and I was member of the Atomic Energy Committee and also defense. And she was having the defense portfolio at that time. And so I met her frequently, and she was, of course, I wasn't taking any initiative to go and meet. Everybody went and do namaste to her, but I kept my distance. But she was very cordial in dealing with me when I wanted questions asked. And so then came the emergency. And the emergency, of course, my going to parliament and all that rattled her, and she was really enraged. To some extent, I think she took it out on my family, who were then in Delhi, and all our property was, attached and things like that. So I was, of course, abroad at that time. I escaped. So I didn't meet her. Then the elections came, and she was defeated. And there was a question of whether she had committed a breach of privilege of parliament, whether she should be sent to jail. Most of our party people, Janata Party people, didn't want her to send to jail. But Charan Singh, Moraji Desai, and I were three people who were determined that she should be sent to jail for, forcing the parliamentary Parliament's office to fudge the reply to the Maruti question of Madhu Limai. And so we prevailed because the others were too afraid that it should not become public. So that way, that also was the. But when she came back, she made huge efforts to try and meet her. And there, Rajiv Gandhi played a role. And then till the end, I kept meeting her. I tried to persuade her not to send the army to Golden Temple. She agreed with me. That's the last meeting I had with her in August of 1984. And she said, "You are right. The Sikhs are after me, and I should have listened to you." But then that's about all. These are the things. Basically, she knew my family, my father, because he was in the Congress, and so all the congressmen used to come to our house. And she was against me because I went to Jansang. If I'd gone to any other party, she would have minded, but there was no other party which would allow me to oppose her the way I did, which Jansang did. They also sent me to Rajya Sabha, by which all that she did to me on IIT, everything went just for a 6. That's all. I never thought of her as a very courageous lady as people make out. I think she was afraid of the Soviet Union, because Rajiv Gandhi himself told me later that his mother had told her never annoy the Soviet Union. I suppose it's because of Subhash Chandra Bose's disappearance.
Dr. Swamy, thank you very much for that detailed information, especially for this younger generation who have forgotten many of these leaders. But you were the person who really fought Indira Gandhi during the emergency. So it has refreshed people's memory of Indira Gandhi. So now I would just have to assess whether we can go for a third question. Ramesh?
I'll make it very short.
Yeah, Ramesh, can you ask the third question to Dr. Swamy?
Yeah, Dr. Swamy, this takes me back to 2005 when I first met you, where you motivated me to do something back for India. So, based on that, in what you've just told us, so what is your advice to the youngsters who want to enter politics and want to help and serve the nation? What would you say that's the best thing that the youngsters should do?
The country needs educated people in politics. Educated people have been brought up to be risk averters. And politics is the art of taking risk. And so I would like the youngsters first to get a good education, do very well. Second, have nice and clean habits, because you will then not require money for too much money, and people will not seduce you. And three, have an ideology and propagate the ideology. People in this country like pravachans a lot. And therefore, I think politics is a very, very, very noble profession. In our Mahabharata and Ramayana, you see nothing but politics. We were always giving the highest importance for clean politics. And therefore, I think this is something the country needs. Educated people who sacrifice their career and then come to politics, rather than people who can't get a career anywhere else and they come to politics. That's it.
Dr. Swamy, does Arvind has any supplementary? आपका पास कोई supplementary Arvind Dr. Swamy को ये राजनीति के सवाल पर पूछना चाहेंगे?
मुझे याद है डॉक्टर स्वामी ने एक बार कहा था कि एक आईआईटी के स्टूडेंट ने कहा कि मैं पॉलिटिक्स में भाग लेना चाहता हूं और मेरे पेरेंट्स को आप परसुएट करिए, और डॉक्टर स्वामी ने उनको पेरेंट्स को कहा, तो पेरेंट्स ने कहा नहीं नहीं, इसका तो बहुत अच्छा कैरियर है, और जो मेरा दूसरा बेटा है वो नालायक है, उसको पॉलिटिक्स में आप ले जाइए। तो ये हमारे पेरेंट्स का सोच भी है, उनको भी बदलना चाहिए।
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल। इसको एक आदर्श का एक ये परिस्थिति का आदर्श का एक पद मानना चाहिए, और अभी तो है कि गुंडे बदमाशी पॉलिटिक्स में रहते हैं।
And all the fashion of all the film stars to enter politics.
Yeah, that's right. The people who are fading in cinema, they enter in politics, not a clue in their head. And they promote also psychophancy.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for another interesting episode of Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga. We once again remind our viewers that every day on this platform of Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga, we will be here at sharp 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. We are expanding our social media platform. We are on the YouTube channel. We are on Facebook Live and on Twitter's Periscope. We thank everybody for their support. My moderator friend Arvind Chaturvedi and Ramesh Swamy, and our technical support Ashish Shetty and Tejas Navalgul. So we thank everybody, the entire team, for putting together this Virat Hindustan Sangam webcast of daily Dr. Swamy live from India, 8 p.m. Indian time. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.